I always start presentations with an apology, so I'm just going to stay on message with this, because I'm going to ramble around a whole range of different thoughts and issues, and I don't think I'm going to be particularly challenging. I'm going to try and, I suppose, set the scene about where I think we're sitting in public services in Scotland just now, and which I think is a relatively, I think there's a kind of call to arms required. Currently, I think there's an opportunity that's around for us all just now, which I think some of this morning pointed us towards. So I hope I'm going to offer some reassurance, I think, as well, about what the current landscape feels like from where I'm standing. I'm sure there'll be one or two wee challenges in there, and at the end I'm going to make some kind of offer about what I might be able to try and do for the sector from here. This is a quotation, and it kind of follows, I think, on quite well from what David Cameron was saying. But for me, it's about nobody else is going to do this. Nobody else is going to do this work. Nobody else is going to grab this ground. Nobody else is going to make sense of this unless folks like us in this room carry this baton further than we've carried it and push the boulder up the hill further than we've pushed it. And it is about leadership. I think there's clearly a thing in there about leadership for us all in all of that. But I think significantly, and that's where I'm going to take the next slide, about the concept of a learning society, which I absolutely subscribe to. I think there's a lot of ground out there that can be held and taken and grabbed by us all, and more of us inside this room and beyond this room. And I don't think that's a particularly difficult thing to do. Fraser said it in a different kind of way. I think last night he said something like, you know, we can just grab this ground and nobody will tell us off for it, or something like to that effect. And I think that's right, because it is the natural, I think there's a natural order of things, and it's the right thing to do. So I think I'm suggesting that this learning work that we're in, we should set within the context of also what else is happening in the country just now about reform, public sector reform, and that whole issue about change. I think we need to understand that process of learning within this process of change at the same time, and actually how then the benefits of us actually engaging communities to be part of that change, which goes back to my initial slide about being the change we want to see. I think there is a moment in time here. I know, as I say, joking apart, I feel like we've been here 3 or 4 times in the 30-odd years I've worked in public sector, public service. I actually think we are more ready than we've ever been before as a profession and as a discipline. But I think there's also that thing about we should just get on and do it. I wonder if as a profession we've spent too much time trying to re-engineer, rewrite, restate, where actually we should just get on and do it. There are hugely compelling stories that everybody in this room can tell about your work and the work you've been involved in and the work that goes on in communities that you're engaged with. And therefore I think at times, perhaps as a profession, we've been a bit too keen to try and see that if we write more and more, it does something to actually build the profession, and actually think maybe we should actually let the work talk for itself more than perhaps we've done in the past. I was intrigued, again, Fraser mentioned last night about the Albemarle report and how things haven't changed from the late 40s. Somebody mentioned the Beveridge report at the COSLA conference about 2 weeks ago, these giant evils that were talked about at the end of the 1940s. We're back at a point in time. The disadvantage gap, the issues are exactly the same. We know what we know. We know what it is works. We know what it is we can do. And that goes back to my thing about should we just get on and do more of it. And this is what I wanted just to briefly talk you through about the knowns. I'm not going to get to the unknowns and the unknown knowns, but I think we should take some comfort from what it is we know, because we do know a fair bit. Some of that from central government, Scottish level, some of that just about our own worlds. So we know that the disadvantage gap is as wide as it's ever been and potentially growing further. So we know that. We all know, because of our backgrounds and because of our engagement in this work over a long number of years, that this is a long game that we're in. I think we need to do more about convincing more people that this is a long game, and I actually think there's an opportunity there to do that, because we do have a set of cabinet secretaries who are pretty well convinced of that and know that this is not something that can be a ship that can be turned in 5 years or 4 years. And I think we need to think about how we utilise that opportunity. We have got a government, absolutely, John Swinney and more cabinet secretaries are absolutely, they're on message about outcomes, they're on message about the high-level priorities that they've set. I don't think they're going anywhere. There's no sense at all for us in local government on health that they're going anywhere on those high-level objectives. So again, there's a fair amount of certainty and surety around there, perhaps more than we've ever had before, about us being able to do things with a greater longevity around about it. We've got the review of community planning, which, as I know, is running at a horrendous pace. But again, the people in this room have the answers to what I believe local members and cabinet secretaries and the like will want to see more of in community planning. The best comment I've heard about community planning, I mean, I think having sat as a director in East Dunbartonshire and felt that community planning, even as a director, community planning was done to us. It wasn't something that was our core business, it was something that happened. And I still feel that way as sitting as a chief executive alongside the leader of the council as he chairs the community planning board. It still feels for us at times that it's something that happens at some points in the month. It's not something which is actually our core business, and we absolutely in South Ayrshire need to move it to our core business. But I think again there's an opportunity there about what might come out of community planning, and I think, and that's why within South Ayrshire, for example, I'm beginning to talk to my colleagues about, well, it's actually no longer about what we are going to do for South Ayrshire Council. It's about what we can do for South Ayrshire. And I think, again, if you look around the expertise in this room, if we were to apply the expertise in this room or the expertise that I have at my hand within a council and applied it beyond the bounds of a council, I think that's a fabulously, it's a huge opportunity, and there's a huge benefit to be gained for individual communities. However, the one thing I did say, I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was, and it was a throwaway remark about we need to move community planning from a noun to a verb. And I thought, my God, how simple is that? It's actually, community planning, I think, still feels pretty paternalistic to me. It's something that we do to communities. Whereas, I think Fraser was saying last night, we need to find a methodology where that process of theoretical consultation and intermittent engagement that we do, okay, and we're getting better at it, certainly in my own council we're getting better at it, but how do we move that to that is just the natural order of things, that those communities are engaged in some methodology, and in the back, as we come out the back of the community planning review, out the back of whatever we can deliver for public sector reform, how do we make actually community planning is public sector reform in a locality? That community planning should be public sector reform, I think, if we can achieve that. So, kind of things I was thinking you might want to be thinking about from here. One of the things I also say to staff in South Ayrshire regularly is I'm really just wanting them to do the right things, because the right things are the right things, and we shouldn't be criticised for doing the right things. And we all know what the right things are, and we've probably known it for 20 or 30 years. Hence, back to my point about how much should we worry about rewriting some of that, or should we just get on and get the compelling stories out of all of that work to help us move this country forward. So I think we need to be confident. I think a confident staff, a confident workforce for us is 70–80% of the job done. If you can get people who are confident, on the front foot, ahead with their thinking, not looking, and it's partly because we've ground it out of them, I think, as bureaucracies over the piece, but we need to give some of that confidence back, and I think us all in this room should have significant confidence in what we can do from here. And I'm not sure if we shouldn't just focus on getting the outcomes more overtly in people's faces, getting more action underway. That compelling story, we have so many compelling stories about successes in communities and with individuals, and I don't think we're confident enough to tell those stories often enough. And actually compelling stories with a longevity are a very powerful tool. And actually any of what Maureen and other colleagues do in HMI is just about capturing compelling stories. They just happen to want to triangulate it to check that actually more than one person can tell that story. So I don't think we're necessarily talking about something that's very difficult. Lastly, I just think we have to make our proposition about what the offer is from us in this room. If you think about other colleagues in the public sector and cabinet, etc., about community planning, we need to make a proposition. What is it that we've got that they can have, that we can help them with? Because I suspect many of my chief exec colleagues are looking for simple messages about things that they can latch onto, that can hold on to. They don't need to understand it. I'm not trying to be critical of, we don't understand everything. I'm an expert in nothing. But you just have to know when a proposition that's put to you in your gut feels like the right thing to go with. And I think we need to do more about making propositions that can take us all forward. Having others alongside us, and that's what I was just going to say in closing about the role that I could maybe take on behalf of Solace. I've got a big portfolio that covers children and young people. I seem to be doing a bit more CLD stuff just by coincidence. Maybe there's more that I can do with Standards Council to try and facilitate that kind of engagement, either with other chief exec colleagues or the wider government network, and I'm happy to do that if I can. And I think the last one, I just came up with this morning, it's the values stupid. You know, it's not the economy stupid, well it is the economy stupid, but you know, it's the values. And I think that's the one thing, again, I would say about, you know, the thing that staggers me constantly about being a chief executive, because I never planned to be in this job at all, is how strangely people just want to hear that it's okay to talk about their values. And the more that we as leaders in this room can reassure people that it's okay to talk about values, and values are good, and values are important, and values are what sets the scene, you will just release so much massive potential in what are fundamentally good staff and good colleagues just by allowing them to be themselves, do the right things, do what they wanted to come into public sector, to public service to do. The very last slide, one again I use regularly, I'm sure you've all seen it, but it's back to doing the right thing.
Thank you.